Hello everyone and welcome to a new IK video. This is Kincaid from M14 and finally we're gonna make the tier list for the defense immortals, and I've got all the defense immortals here. Hopefully we did not forget anyone. There is a total of maybe 15 defense immortals including the chaos ones, and just keep in mind that this list is for the free-to-play players, the mid spenders and the low spenders. This is not for the high spenders or the mega whales, and this is how I'm gonna place each and every immortal in this tier list. So if I'm placing Anubis into the situationally strong or the very good, does not mean that for the mega whales he's in a very OP immortal. I'm mainly doing this list according to some low spenders or maybe some high spenders who wants to purchase just one chaos immortal, and they're gonna build their entire march around this one chaos immortal, and they have to choose one out of all of them. So I'm not actually building this list, and I'm actually building this list for this specific reason, so please keep this in mind. So let's start with the chaos immortals. We have Anubis, we have Athena. Let's start with Athena, since she's actually situationally strong because she was used, or she's still used, to counter the wounds, which is not a lot of people are using nowadays. The only two immortals that apply wounds in this game is either Ken Emperor, which is a lot of people use, I'm not gonna lie, and Genghis Khan. However, if there is a mega whale that is running Athena, I doubt that anyone using Genghis or Ken Emperor will have a chance against him. Anyway, Athena is not as good as she used to be. I remember when she came out, she was so broken. There wasn't enough actually marches to beat just one march with Athena. However, right now it doesn't just feel as strong as she used to. So this is why I'm placing her in the situational strong. I feel like she could be used against wounds sometimes, but not actually very necessary immortal. Next we have Anubis. Anubis is very similar to Bjorn. However, Bjorn is way cheaper and Anubis is way more expensive, way hard to get. So I'm gonna place Anubis in the very good. So in case you're looking to get him, I doubt he should be your first choice of the Chaos Immortals. So I'm gonna place him in the very good tier. He's actually very good. His skill is very helpful, and he's one of the main choices for the mega whales to use in their marches. His skill actually increases the damage received by all the immortals affected by his skills by up to 20%, I think, and his artifact increases the chance by up to 30%. Let's take a look here. So his skills converts your physical defense. I forgot about this part. It converts your physical defense into physical attack. So the higher the physical defense you have, it converts into physical attack, and it applies a sandstorm to all your opponents. They take damage by, I think the damage is 150%, similar to Blade Vortex, for every 3 seconds for 9 seconds. So the damage applied is 3 times over 9 seconds, plus the initial damage. I think this, when it came out, is very useless because he used to be countered by Thedora, and a lot of people used Thedora back then. However, not a lot of people are using Thedora nowadays. It is different to bites, because bites cannot be cleansed or removed by Thedora. It only can be removed by the Nine Tails. Alright, so increase the damage taken by all enemies by 20% and inflict bleed on them. This is the part that the mega whales are using the skill for. It increases the damage received by 20%. And the Deadly Sandstorm increases the damage taken by the enemy with the highest losses by an additional 10%. So the enemy with the highest losses receive not only 20% extra damage, he receives 30% extra damage. And this is the main reason all the mega whales are still using Anubis. Okay, so we have Yi Sun-Chen. Yi Sun-Chen, one of my favorites nowadays, and he's a very powerful immortal and very easy to obtain. He's not a free-to-play immortal, not completely free-to-play. If you're building him as a free-to-play user, you're gonna take some time. However, he's still doable. He's still actually accessible for the free-to-play players, and for the low spenders and the mid spender, he's so easy to obtain. So I'm gonna place him in the OP tier because his skill is so broken. His skill is so simple, yet is so efficient. He reduces the damage in an area by 30%, reducing the damage by 30%. And if you have his exclusive artifact, he increases the heals received in this area by 30%. So this is actually very powerful combined with Fountain of Life, because I'm using this skill, or if you're using a healer in your march such as Thedora or Zenobia, or you have Vitality Touch in your march, this is gonna be very powerful if you have the exclusive artifact. This is why I really like Yi Sun-Shin. How to obtain him? It is so simple. You can obtain him through the golden path, or the weekly event, the elemental boon, or the random shards. A lot of ways. Cid was actually a decent immortal back then, because he used to be the only counter, or the best counter, for the mixed marches, and back then mixed marches was a nightmare for everyone. I remember I built Cid as soon as mixed marches became a meta, and I used to beat all the mega whales who were using mixed marches back then. It was very helpful. However, right now I don't think there's a lot of people are using mixed marches. However, he's still usable, so if you have him, maybe you can use him against the mixed marches, or you can use him against an immortal such as Alex, because there's a lot of people who are running the Alex Yi Sun-Shin march. However, I do not encourage you to build him specifically for this reason, because there's a lot other immortals who could be more powerful or more helpful than him. He's also kind of expensive. You can build him through the market, however, you can only build him with gems, so it is very annoying to build. King Arthur was actually for quite some time very powerful. He used to counter all the mega damage dealers such as Himiko, Apollo, and Loki. However, nowadays he has been nerfed. He's not as used as before. However, I've seen some reports after the nerf that he can still do some damage, so I'm gonna place him in the usable tier. Toyotomi Hideyoshi, his entire mechanics revolves around the dodge, and dodge is not a thing in IK anymore, because there is huge amounts of accuracy that we can get from a lot of different places, either the dragon, maybe the specializations, and lots more. So his soul crystals, I haven't seen any decent march with Toyotomi, so I'm gonna place him here. Bjorn is a shadow immortal. He's a bit more expensive compared to the other epic immortals that you can acquire from either the golden pass or other places. However, he's still not that expensive. He's doable. You can get him through the random shadow fragments or the random shadow shards, but he's a very, very powerful immortal for so many reasons, and I'm gonna explain why. I'm using him in my main march right now, and the main reason everyone is using Bjorn, or everyone is a fan of Bjorn, is this stat here. Damage taken increased by 10%. He increases the damage taken by the enemy team by 20%, similar to Anubis. However, he does so much more than Anubis in my opinion, and let's get started. First, he creates a scorched earth under your feet that lasts 9 seconds. This is actually very nice considering he has a very high energy regain, and increases the damage dealt to the enemy team within the scorched earth by 20%. At the same time, our units gain 25% physical attacks as lifesteal. I don't really care about this part since I don't have any physical... well, actually I do. I have Apollo, but I'm not really interested in this part because I haven't really seen that much value of this part of the skill. I haven't seen that much heals from this part of the skill, so I don't really care about this part. However, our front row team resilience rate increased by an additional 30%. This is very important. The resilience ratio increase protects your front line from all the critical damage. It is very powerful against some marches that count on crit. As I show you in one of my previous videos, some other marches can do up to 100% crit rate in each and every fight. However, if you have Bjorn, you can counter this part. And his exclusive artifact in the Scorched Earth area, he reduces the attack speed of all the immortals by 50%. So he's a great counter for the Alex Yi Sun-Shin march or the mixed marches or any other marches that uses attack speed. And there's a lot of players nowadays who are using the knife through butter skill, this one here and this one here. So Bjorn is actually a very powerful counter to this skill as well, because of the attack speed reduction. I mean, 50% attack speed reduction is a big deal, and it lasts for 9 seconds. So this is why I'm placing him in the OP tier. Leonitis, I remember someone asked about his skill and how does it work. So let's explain his skill before we place him in a tier. His skill is simply it deals damage and reduces the damage that he receives. As I remember, unless they changed it without I notice. So he inflicts damage to all enemies, and probably this is one of the very few defense immortals who applies damage to all the enemy team, and reduces the damage you receive by 30%. His damage is not that high, it is only 250%, considering he doesn't have a very high physical attack stats. However, the damage reduction is very nice, and it only lasts for 6 seconds. However, his exclusive artifact have an interesting mechanics, which is reduces the energy for the enemy team. This is his exclusive artifact. So when Leonitis deals damage, he reduces the target's energy by 150. This is not a lot. 150 energy is not that much, and his energy regain is not even that high. It is 67 base energy regain. I think the highest he can go is 85 or something. So his skill is not really that powerful. He's very defensive though, considering he reduces the damage received by himself by 30%. However, he's not that really powerful or not that really useful in any combos I've seen so far. So he goes to the Soul Crystals tier. Julius Caesar, I've talked about him in my last 2 videos, the 2 videos that I talked about these marches that I posted. So I'm not gonna explain how he does his skill works, but considering his price, considering how easy he is to build, and considering how powerful he is for the free-to-play marches, he goes to the OP tier. He is very powerful. If you're a free-to-play player and you're looking to build a decent march, then you better start building Julius Caesar. The only annoying part about him is that he's a spearman leader. So you have to upgrade the spearman troop stick, and this is gonna take a while. This is the only annoying part. Other than that, he's really, really good. Pakal have some kind of unique mechanics that works with Alex. The more normal attacks you do, the more shields you receive. However, it is very useless. It doesn't really apply that much shields, and you cannot use Bakal with next to Alex as long as you have either Ethan Chen or Bjorn. These 2 immortals are way, way better than Bakal. This is why he goes to the Soul Crystals tier, because he doesn't have a place in the current meta. Right, we have Tokugawa. Tokugawa is very actually powerful in lightning marches. I've seen a lightning march in one of the servers that I went against in server, I think it was server 38. I've seen a lot of players using lightning marches with Tokugawa, and it was good. However, I believe Yi Sun Chen is way better than him. However, he's still very good, so he goes to the very good tier. Trajan is actually good. Trajan, the only annoying part about Trajan is that his buff that increases the critical damage only applies to the fire immortals. He's good in the fire team, so he goes to the situationally strong. However, if you'd like to use him with a Chaos Immortal, he will be very powerful, because his buff could apply to the Chaos Immortals as well, because the Chaos Immortals adapt to the situation. For example, I have my Chaos Immortal, which is Apollo, that has an Earth element in this march here. However, if we look at the reports, you can see that my Apollo does actually apply the Dragon Power skill, which is the buff that he gets from Ken Emperor. So Ken Emperor applies a cleave effect for only the Wind Immortals, and in this situation, Apollo is an Earth Immortal. However, he adapts to all elements, and he receives all kind of buffs that goes for the specific elements. So he still gets the Dragon Power buff, which is the cleave, and as you can see, he applies the Dragon Power. I actually used Trajan alongside Apollo because I'm sure that he applies the critical damage increase. So he's situationally strong. However, he's not that great. So that's the tier he goes to. Ragnar Lothbrok. Ragnar is actually one of my favorite immortals in the entire game, because I have used a lot of magical marches in my old account, and he was one of my top picks in order to use along with Himiko, along with Loki. So he goes to the OP tier. even though he's kinda annoying to build. He's similar to Yi Chen. He is available in recently he was added to the Golden Path, so you can acquire his shards from the Golden Path. I do actually buy his shards each and every month, and he increases his skill similar to Yi Chen, simple yet efficient. He increases the magical damage received by the enemy team by 30%. If you have his exclusive artifact, the effects increased from 6 seconds to 7.5 seconds. Charles. Charles, once upon a time, he was the most broken immortal in the game. However, right now we have a lot of replacements, so he's not as good as he used to be. He's very good though. I believe he's still very good. And I used him for the longest time until I built Bjorn. So if you do not have the right immortal to replace, I think you can use Charles until you get the right immortal. The reason Charles is actually good is his shields. He's one of the best sustained immortals in the game. He applies a crazy amount of shields, and I believe that energy shield synergizes very good with him. However, he's very expensive and he's very annoying to build. He's very slow to build from the markets. You can unlock him if you're lucky from the random fragments. You can get him from the random fragments. However, once you unlock him, you will be able to build him for free by purchasing his fragments by gems in the market. If you would like, you can actually build him through the elemental boon, just like Baldwin and Genghis Khan. However, he will be a bit more pricey. However, he still goes to the very good tier. Richard is actually a very good immortal in my opinion for the free-to-play players and the beginners. He applies stuns. He's very annoying in early game. However, he's only an early game immortal because later on there's a lot of better replacements and he doesn't really add that much value later on into the game because there's a lot of players who actually become more aware of how to deal with him. Lots of players use Fighting Master on their damage dealers, so his stuns become meaningless. So he's actually usable in the early game, and that's about it. He's a free-to-play immortal, very easy to build. You can purchase his fragments from the market, and his artifact actually increases the chance. Yeah, increases the chance of the target being stunned by 20%. And his initial chance is 40%. So he has a 60% chance to apply stuns at max level. I think he's a decent immortal for the early game, and that's about it. This is my tier list for all the defense immortals. This is the final tier list. Hopefully it's fine. Hopefully I did not forget any defense immortals. There's a lot of them, and this will be all for this one. Thank you so much for watching. Next, I think I will deal the mages, maybe. Yeah, maybe the mages, and that's all for this one. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.